Welcome to the Consciously Connected podcast.
We're so excited for this episode number 54, where we're diving into something that has deeply impacted our relationship for the longest time, and something we see with our clients and so many people we talk to that we aren't 100% noticing what's going on. And because it's unconscious and because we don't notice it, it's deeply impacting the deep intimacy, the deep connection that we desire in relationships with ourselves, first and foremost, with our partners, with friends, with clients, with our kids. And that is what we're going to call the conscious ego epidemic. Like we came up with that name, we're like, oh man, this is so true. But it's like
Yeah, it
the
is.
it's the work that we're doing, and it's the consumption that we have through social media, and it's the consumption that we are going to in AI nowadays that actually is harming your relationship in ways that you may not 100% see or understand, and keeping you disconnected from what you truly desire when it comes to connection with other people. And we can all kind of look and say, obviously we've become more self-aware, we've become more awakened,
Mhm.
through this walk, whether it be through the consumption of information and seeing things and resonating with things online, or going to AI and having a mirror be kind of put back to us on ourselves. And then we also can see ourselves more powerfully, we see the world more powerfully, more awake than I think we've ever been as a whole. But there is something that actually is running, that is, we are self-aware, but there's a part of us that is unconsciously not taking self-ownership. And because of that, it's just like self-awareness becomes just a sophisticated way of not owning the actual truths that are running, and the actual shadows that are running, and the actual authenticity that we're being called to. So, in this episode, we're going to dive into this. We're going to point out some things. You may see yourself in this, you may see other people in this, but we invite you to take this episode and really, really anchor it in and hear the pieces that maybe your ego would want to avoid.
The ego wants to avoid all this shit. As long as it don't, especially if it doesn't make you see yourself in the best light and see yourself in the most ideal way. And I think a lot of times what we're going to talk about in this episode gets not mentioned a lot
Yeah.
because, in doing what we do and talking to as many people as we talk to and get really intimate with people, you start to realize like work has been done, but that work isn't for you. It's for how you see everybody in your life. And then being able to take that work and reflect it back to you, that's the real work.
Yeah, I think we're in a space where it's like you can consume a lot of information, and you can consume a lot of information and then have that information residing in your brain. You can have language that you can put to things that maybe you didn't have language to put to things before. You can see things more outside of yourself than you've ever been able to see them before, through information, through learning, through awareness, through an up-leveled consciousness of, I see and understand this because now I have resources that, one, I've studied, two, I've put through AI, and there's more things that are coming through in that way, or I've taken this course, or I've done this thing. And I see a lot of women I work with, and this is something I deeply am a product of as well for
Yeah.
several years, which we're going to obviously dive into. But I see a lot of women I work with who have done so much work, whether it be they've hired multiple different coaches, they've taken courses, they've read a ton and listened to the podcast, and all of those things take you to a certain level of the work, so to speak,
Mm,
or a certain level of awareness, or being able to see things, or having those aha moments, which make us feel really good if we're being real. Like being able to see yourself and being able to see other people and seeing the patterns that are running, and awakening to different programs you have, or different ways that you're operating, and then having language to be able to come to give meaning, to give awareness to things that you've experienced in your life and your relationships. Like all of that can feel very empowering, because
yeah.
it's like Even when we first started learning about masculine and feminine energy and polarity, and when we first started learning about attachment styles, and we first started learning about pieces of ourselves that gave us language and understanding to what was actually going on in our relationship and what was
Yes.
actually a challenge and where we actually weren't showing up 100% in alignment with these things. But there's so much language that came into play and so much learning that came into play. Me kind of going ahead of you, or me doing the work before you, or gaining more consciousness of things. Plus, I was, living from a lens of different traumas and different things and different hypervigilance and different intuitiveness and all these things that I was operating from a little bit different than you, gave me this space where it's like, now I have language. Now I have
Yes.
understanding of what I was feeling and what I was witnessing and what I was experiencing. And all of that is very powerful. And it does give you a space of like different levels of awakenings, different levels of growth. And that's the first step ultimately.
Yes. And I think that's the like baseline. If we stop there, perfect. Hey, it helps me to understand myself or the experience I'm experiencing. And beautiful. Great. If that was it. The problem is once we gain that level of knowledge, what I start to see, and we're starting to see it, and we executed it on each other. It's like I have this level of knowledge now. I'm this person,
Yeah.
and I need to tell you where you're wrong. And you take self awareness out of it, and you become other people aware. And it's like, I'm just giving an example. Like when we started, I'm a my field of study and my expertise is masculine and feminine dynamics. I love it. I talk about it. I think about it. Jocelyn probably gets tired of hearing me refer to everything as this, but it is what it is. And when I first started going in it, I thought, yeah, hey, you're not giving me the feminine fuel, and you're not doing this, you're not operating this way. Little did I take any effort to say, are you helping to create it? It was always pointing outwards. And I inflicted a lot of just pressure onto her of, you're not feminine. Not even observing her, but just off of what I thought my knowledge base was, that I could execute onto her. And I start to see that a lot. And I've seen it with women, I've seen it with men where I've done all this work, but none of it's directed at themselves. It's directed at the circumstances they're in, if that makes
I
sense.
It does, but it doesn't. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna kind of pull it together.
Pull it
Um,
together because I mean, my little nebulous ass be talking in the clouds sometimes.
yeah. So I mean, what you're saying is actually real and true, of course. But it's like this space where and this was at the very beginning of your work of learning about masculine and feminine energetics, and obviously I had done similar work in that space, more so a lot in the identity and the feminine
Yes.
identity work, and not necessarily the polarity and energetics, although you had dove in a little bit more into that space with your reading, with major consumption of David Dita
Oh yeah.
and and other people that follow. And so it was like we were in this space where we had both were in different levels of our own work. And it was at the very beginning of that work and what you were reading and what you're consuming. Then it's like, okay, there was some level of you seeing yourself. There was some level of you seeing the parts of you that were operating from like wounded feminine energy, or, not really standing in certain places of
Hmm.
yourself. But it was always from the place or through the lens that felt empowering to you. So, for example, we can go into something and we can say, I'm being this way, I'm self abandoning, for example. And it's like, I need to go do this thing. and I need to do this work so that I'm no longer self-abandoning myself. But there's
Yes.
still like this undertone of like that is the empowerment work that feels good.
Yes.
But you were still like going outside of yourself and pointing blame of all the things you were learning of, okay, I'm reading this and Jocelyn doesn't operate this way. Jocelyn doesn't show up in this feminine fuel. Jocelyn doesn't show up in this feminine energy. And there was all these things of like, yes, you were seeing yourself, but it was from the places of, I see myself in this and who I need to become to feel more empowered versus I'm seeing myself in this and the shadows that are running and the darkness that's running and the pieces of me that are actually not showing up to create and to lead and move myself or yourself in that case to create the dynamics that you were ultimately putting on me that I wasn't being.
Absolutely. And
And
thank you for tying that together.
yeah. Yeah. Because I think it's like we obviously like we can sit here and we just get on the back porch and we riff and
Yeah.
we talk about these things and we go into them, but there's like this space where we have to give like nuance, I think, here to for it to fully land and understand, what this may look like. So we've been having these conversations a lot the last 2 days. And that's why we decided like this podcast was on our hearts. It was like coming through
Yeah.
and why we felt like we needed to do this.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's super important because this is what we do in the world. We help people
Mhm.
become more self-aware, more conscious so they can operate and see themselves and how they're moving in their life. And I think the thing that gets left out of the line in self-awareness is self. And they take it as awareness of the world and awareness of their partner and awareness of this relationship, awareness of this. And that's why you get all these terms. We learn all these terms like narcissism and anxious attachment and avoidant attachment and feminine and masculine. But we don't look at it as how do we play a role in that and what shadows and pieces of us are in operation of those things too. And because that's self awareness and taking all that knowledge in and doing the actual self work so that you can take yourself into places without needing other people to be anything different.
Yeah, well, it's having a conscious awareness of the thing that's going on. And so many women that I know and work with, they do see themselves, but they see themselves from the degree that they can. Like we don't know what we don't know until we know it. And like there's these things running that are a match for things, but it's still like this outward thing where it's like, okay, this is how it should be, and this is what I'm learning, and this is what I'm growing in. But and we can even look at ourselves, but like I said, it's always looking at ourselves from the ways that we feel like we need to be more empowered versus
Yes.
looking at ourselves and how we're contributing from the shadow side that's actually creating what we're experiencing outside of ourselves, that we're projecting the blame on that person for being. And
Yeah.
so it's a little bit different. It's a little bit different, much more powerful state of
Yeah.
actually seeing yourself because we can say, oh, this person's not being this person's not being that. But if we don't actually see how we are the reciprocal wound match for it and the shadow match for it to a large degree, then
Yes.
we will move in a way that, you know, is
Yeah.
different than that.
Well,
We'll
I
move
mean,
in a way to protect that.
you create like this hierarchical pedestalization of self because you're trying your best to hold on to empowerment versus betterment. And it's like everything's moving in that direction. You're like, well, I learned this and I see it this way. Like all men are this, or all women need to do this, or this is what that looks like, and this is what that looks like. And when we're just there, we're not like putting ourselves in the frame. We're outside of the frame looking down on of everything. And when you get into a relational dynamic and you're interacting, like with me and you, when we first come in, we both had our own shit. We had our own awarenesses. We had our own thing. But then when we get together, it's like, oh, there's more than I'm able to look at because we're up here. I see all these pieces. I remember you, like I used to tell you, like, I don't know if I'll ever catch up. Like, and I pedestalized you too in your own, in how intelligent you were, in how you saw things and you observed things and you were aware of things. And I'm just sitting there going, like, man, I don't know if I can fucking ever get there. And you're like, I don't know if you're able. You would say things like that. And so it was like this place. And then all of a sudden, you started to realize, like, oh, I'm a contributor to the problem. I'm a contributor to the situation. I am an equal participant in the scenario that I'm being aware of, but I'm not being aware of myself in the participation of it. And when you started to do that, and I was like constantly probably over judgmental and critique of every little fucked up thing I was doing in every scenario. And it was like, then we started to like, oh, we're not so far apart. We're trying to walk this life together and we're trying to see each other together and we're trying to see the best, see that we operate the best that we can as individuals together. And that's it's a different perspective.
Yeah, I mean, because at the end of the day, the ego doesn't disappear the second that you become more conscious, aware of something, or have language to something, or can see something. It actually, in some ways, gets stronger and louder because you find something that then makes sense, but you still kind of filter it through the lens of the outside of you, the people outside of you, the experiences outside of you, that we don't 100% see how we're contributing to the wound match of the thing. And so this can look multiple different ways, and I can just give an example from my side of the street is, there would be like this space where, I mean, I was very intuitive, of course. I was very hyper vigilant, though I had
Yeah.
done a ton of work. I was very conscious of things, but I couldn't necessarily see how my side was contributing to the bigger picture. And so it's like, for example, you would bring things to me and I would be able to call out what you were doing that was inauthentic, how you were showing up in a shadow or a wound, like how you were responding to me, how you were triggered by me, how you would go into your not good enough wound the second that I would bring something to you where in
Hmm.
my mind I was just bringing it to to talk about it, to have us connect on it, or to have you see it so that we could then move through it. But I wasn't really seeing how every place that I was moving in that was from protection, was from walls being built, was from more judgment and criticism because I was attached to it versus just coming from that true loving energy of needing and wanting you to see something. It was coming from the space of me continuously moving energetically to feel safety. And in
Yes.
that, and the ways that I moved for that, it was like um I was trying to move in a way that would get myself to feel safe. And in that, I wasn't moving from true openness, from true love, from true authentic standards, from my queen energy. I was moving from this energy where I still had my ninjas out protecting me. And in the polarity of our relationship and the way that we're moving, that was always at the forefront. And so you didn't ever have true access to be your safe, authentic self because I wasn't leading my own self into the softness, into the feminine energy, into the safe space because it was this
Yeah.
constant state of, I need you to see this because I need you to see it so then I feel safe. But it was coming across a certain way, but then I would blame you for your reaction to it. And
Hmm.
although that was real, and I could
Yes.
give a million reasons consciously as that was real. But it was like I wasn't seeing my energetic role in it. I wasn't seeing the mirror as to why I was receiving what I was receiving through you because I couldn't see how I was still operating from this place of I was armored
Yeah.
up and I wasn't operating truly aligned and authentic to my true self and expecting you to do it. I was
Yep.
expecting you to show up with more authenticity, you to show up healed from your wounds, you to show up this way. So then I could feel something to then feel like I could do that. That's not how it works. It's like we can't expect someone else to be something that we're not actually leading ourselves to be. We can't expect somebody else to make us feel something that we're not actually anchored in feeling ourselves. And so there was so much of that dynamic of our relationship where you were actually the mirror to my own stuff and my own things that were running. But because I was so conscious of everything that was going on, and I was so conscious of you and so conscious of who you
Hmm.
were being and that you weren't showing up this way, and I could call those things out and I could see them very clearly, and I would use my consciousness language to in some ways, have myself be or you be inferior to what I was
Yes.
bringing forward. And to the point where you even got to a place where you're like, I mean, you say all these things and I feel like I'm chasing ghosts, and you were. Because at the end of the day, I was constantly holding you to some level of being to respond to energetically that wasn't the natural of what you would respond to, because I wasn't being it energetically to be a match for it or receive it or lead it or,
Yeah.
be in my own energy to actually transcend it. Not from like me being out here. And I always say this, I know I say this probably on multiple episodes, but I was trying to be your boat navigator and getting you to be something or do something. And instead of just really looking at myself and like, where am I being a lighthouse? Where am I being the person who's fueling my own self, who's open, who's trusting, who's loving, who's non judgmental, who, is safety and trust in my own self before I was expecting someone outside of me to give me that foundation. And in that, like, we played this like roulette game all the time
Yeah.
of like,
And I think
you
it's
know,
important, like right there, and obviously we'll talk about my shit, but ladies, right? And I think the things that we've learned from going through this ourselves, and then seeing other people and helping other people go through this, is that when we start to operate like this, men become very performative. And the thing you want them to be better at, they become worse at. They become a worse, less authentic version of themselves because they start to try to tiptoe around every little thing you need them to be so you can feel safe. And they don't even know what the fuck they're doing. They're just trying every day to not walk loudly, and they're walking like this, like, and I'm if you're not seeing me, be on YouTube, but I'm all tensed up walking like with my shoulders because we don't know what's gonna cause the next riff, or what we're gonna get judged on next, or what's gonna be pointed out we need to fix here. And in that, you create this guy who is a shell, and he's just walking and he's performing and he's trying to get it right. I used to say that to you all the time. I just want to get it right. And it's like, why can't I just be real? And here I am. But it was because men tend to be like, we're like dogs sometimes. We just try to perform for love. And so
mhm,
when you bring things to us in that capacity, it feels good. Oh, can you do A, B, and C? It would make me feel more safe. Once they start doing that, what you don't realize is the relational dynamic it creates is you can't trust them. Number one.
mhm,
The other relational dynamic that it creates is their mama, and I got to tell them what to do so they can do it. And then it breaks the polarity, even though they're showing up and still being the thing you need, it's in a way that you don't want. And they're doing things you want them to do to make you feel safe, but their energy is, like Jocelyn used to tell me, it's repulsive. And it's not because they're trying to do anything. It's not because of you. It's because of the dynamic of when people start to point out in others, especially guys, a lot of guys that I know and that I've talked to, and I talk to a fucking lot of guys a week. They all have they all have a worthiness wound, like a not good enoughness about them. A lot of them, the vast majority. And as soon as you tell them, like, hey, if you do this, then you're gonna get you're gonna get to feel enough. Men are like, I'll fucking jump on that shit all day long. They don't know what they're doing. And I used to tell Jocelyn, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just chasing ghosts over here, just trying to figure it out every day.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
the
I would say that most people, that's the core of the wound,
yeah,
is the worthy wound. But that can come from multiple different pathways, of course. But
100%.
yeah,
And I think it's now like, we've gotten to a place where it's you're willing and I have told a client about this yesterday, which is crazy. Like the thing that impresses me about Jocelyn that you would never see and never understand until you start doing it yourself is no matter what comes into your field or who it comes from now, your first inclination is the journal in you. How am I creating this in my life? And I always be like, what the fuck? No, fuck them. They did this to you. Hell no, shoot them a bird, cut them out. You're like, no, this is showing up for me. I need to figure this out. And when you do now, that's your first method. That's your first turn. It's not, it's in. And from that, now you put yourself in the picture before you put another person in the picture. And then you combine the pictures, which is a powerful way to do it.
Yeah, and I feel like I've done this for many, many years. The thing is, I think, and where we get a lot of people get tripped up is it's like you can do that and you can see yourself, but then there's still this thing outside of yourself that you feel like it's like either I need to hold a standard for, or I'm not available for, or they're treating me this way, or they're doing this. And there was multiple things and multiple examples I had as to that being the case, whether it
Yeah.
be our relationship and the things that you were doing in your own self and your own space that were creating something for me in our relationship, or if it was friendships, and something was going on outside of myself, but it was deeply impacting me, or I would see the higher thing going on. But it was like going
Parenting,
and, oh, yeah,
parenting,
parenting for
parenting.
sure.
That
Yeah,
was
parenting
that was one of my biggest ones. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
or even like business. I mean, there's always like spaces where these things go on. And I learned that skill, I think, a long time ago. Is, they always say, like, go look in the mirror. And I say that a lot. And there's two different spaces of that. Like, you can go look in the mirror and you can say, okay, like, how is this for me, or what is this showing me, and all of that. But if you think about yourself looking in the mirror, there's all that you can see is the reflection back to you. And what you can't see is the things going on behind you. When you're looking in the mirror, it's like, I can see my face, I can see the parts, I can see the things going on. But when I'm looking in the mirror, I can't see the big old stain on the back of the bottom of my shirt. I can't see the fact that I sat in mustard and there's a whole thing like running down the back of my leg. I'm looking at the mirror, like, I mean, everything looks great. It's like you can't 100% see the other side of things. And this is where I feel like in the last, I don't even know how long, I'm terrible with timing, but it's like what I really got good at was not only looking at the mirror, because I feel like I've done that for years and years and years, where it's like I will always go look at the mirror and like see my
Yes.
role in it and see what my position is, how it's for me. Nothing happens to me. Like, I would always say I'm not a victim to my circumstances, but it's like being able to see in the mirror is one thing. And I think we do a lot of this work and we can see ourselves in the work. We can see who we've been. We can see the fact that we move from wounded masculine energy, and people, like even clients taking our courses, like they'll come and they're like, oh my God, like I see who I've been. I see who I've been being in my relationship. That's all the first step. And I feel like so many people stop at the first step. It's like being able to see yourself and having the awakenings is the first step. And I know we talk about this a lot in like what we do
Yes.
as coaches and our framework. And the awakening piece is the first step. And that is a powerful step. You have to be able to awaken to it. You have to be able to see it.
Yeah.
But what I wound up starting to do was not only having the awareness and the awakening and being self aware and seeing things, But it was also then saying, okay, what is also on the other side? What is
Hmm.
on the back side of this mirror? What is on the back side of what I can't see? And a lot of that is what other people's experience was of me, whether it was my intention or not, whether it was who I was meaning to be or not, whether it was the
Yes.
heart I saw in myself or not, or whether it was whatever, like the shadows that would run in the dynamics of my relationships and the thing that I was getting back. I had to not only look in the mirror and see like what at the foreface, the awakening of what was going on, but I
Hmm.
also had to see the dichotomy of the side. I had to see the other perspective. And that is where I started really, really becoming more embodied. And this is the next
Yes.
step. It's like you have to awaken, but then there is the alignment piece, there's the
Yes.
embodiment piece. And for so long, I would be able to call things out and see things outside of myself and see things in myself and give language to it and be able to say like this is what's running and this is what's happening, and I would be able to see you so clearly and other people so clearly and how they were operating in their wounds and how they were showing up, and oftentimes how that was manifesting was quote unquote hurting me or was against me or was something that I felt victim to. And this is
Yeah.
where I feel like we get so caught up in conscious victimness or victimhood consciousness or however you want to say
Yeah.
it, because it's like I was able to see so much, but then I was still a victim to it because it was like, okay, I can consciously see their wounds. I can consciously see why they're operating that way. And I would even get to a place where I would bypass the emotions of the hurt or what someone was doing to me to consciousness and
Yeah.
being able to say, oh, they're just operating this way to me because I can see them. I can see the wounds they're operating from. I can see what their projections they're operating from. And I could see people outside of myself so clearly. And then it would be like, okay, now we're going to go into the empowerment work where it's like, I can see people outside of me. I can see that who they're being. I
Hmm.
can see why they're being that way. And but it's still this is being done to me.
Yeah.
And now I need to work on boundaries. I need to work on standards. I need to work on, standing in my truth more, loving myself more, like all those things. And those are very much important. And that work
Absolutely.
is very much important. But I feel like that's the where 90% of people go to their work at that point.
Hmm.
And that's also where it stops.
Yeah.
And so it's like it stops there in the embodiment piece, but then we still don't actually see the other part that's running, which, I call them fun shadows. They're not fun, but like seeing yourself being a victim to something outside of yourself and then being like, okay, I need to be
Mm.
more empowered in this. So I need to
Yes.
go do the thing that holds a different standard where I stand in my empowerment and I'm going to be better and I'm going to grow in this and I'm going to be a badass. And all of that
Yes.
is like positive, growth. Yes, shadows running. Yes, there was still shadows running as to why I would self abandon all the time. And yes, there were shadows running as to why I was receiving the things I was receiving. But what is even deeper of the shadows that are not so fun and empowering are the shadows that are running that actually, if we have to look at them, they make us, they trigger the deepest wounds that we have of not being good enough, of not being worthy, of all the shame and guilt that we have
Hmm.
that's running, that we have built this ego parts of ourselves to the, I call them the little ego ninjas out here, like
Hmm.
fighting to not have to look at those things and not look at those parts of ourselves because
Yeah.
that feels bad. So it's like, oh, a shadow of self abandonment. Let me go and like, yes, I'm going to go get more empowered. And so like, I'm going to go do work to be more empowered. That's feel good.
Yeah.
And it does feel good. And it is powerful and it is what's needed. But there's this other side where it's like looking at the shadows of who I'm being that I would feel bad about, that I would feel like shame around, that I would feel like I'm not the most ideal person, that you have to put off all victim mentality, not just saying, oh, I'm not a victim, but actually embody not being in your victim consciousness, that everything outside of you and everything that you're experiencing is ultimately something that you are a match for and that you are creating or that you are
Yeah,
needing to see. And
absolutely.
that's a whole nother realm of work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the power in it, because the power is being able to. I always say it as this thing, it in the way I represent it, because I'm a very visual person sometimes, is like there's you, there's the person you're trying to relate to, and then what's standing between you and them. And it's usually your shadows. And a lot of people don't even pay attention to those. They don't look at them. They don't acknowledge them. They acknowledge what the other person's doing that's keeping them from relating to them at the highest level. Like, you keep operating like this, it closes me down and I'm unable to open up and give you my heart. You keep doing this and it's unsafe. You're not authentic. And I feel scared that you may do A, B, and C. But it those all sound good, and a lot of awareness gives you that opportunity. A lot of work will give you the opportunity to see how things move around you and how that affects you. That's one level of work. The second level of work is, how are you showing up preventing yourself from actually doing the relating? And I'm using relationships here because I talk about it all the time. But how are my shadows coming in between me and Josh? Like, my shadows were so big. I was never good enough. I was not lovable. I didn't think I was worthy to be in her space all the time. And I could see where she was operating A, B, and C, and I could see that, but I couldn't see how the shadow of me was standing in between me and her. And until you start to dive into those shadows, we say they hide, but actually they stand between the thing that we're trying to get to. And we end up relating to our shadows, but in a way where our shadows is our bodyguard almost, and we're operating around it. Like, I can see you over there beyond my shadow. Like, my shadow is not like, this is okay. That's not okay. This is okay. That's not okay. And then when we start to turn it around, like you said, it's like, and that analogy of looking in the mirror, because I was thinking about the other night. We were going out and I put on a shirt and I was like, does this look good? You're like, yeah. And I turned around, you're like, oh, hell no. I'm like, what? You're like, the whole back of your shirt is destroyed. And if I didn't have, like, I would have went out in public just like this, like, all right, you me from behind, I look like an idiot.
You've been feeling good about yourself.
For real. But that happens a lot. And I know for me, like, doing a lot of mirror work and doing those things, you see a lot of you. But when you get into relationship with people, this is parenting, family, friends, intimate partners, they see things in you that you have blinded yourself from. That you have, like, nope, that can't be me. I'm here. My ego sees this. And then when they start pointing it out, our first response is there, until we realize, like, that's not solving the problem. And then we have to turn it back into here. All right, cool. They're saying something to me for real. I remember the first time I ever said something to you, it was not the most appropriate shit on the planet. The first time I ever said anything to you. And I said it in the worst way. Guys, don't take this verbatim. Don't ever do this. This is the dumb as hell. It's not something great to do if you're in a relationship with somebody. And I remember telling her, I was like, if you want me to lead, you're going to have to stop swinging your dick around. And in that moment, she was like, what the and pissed and saying because I triggered it. And it was just not appropriate. It was completely
Well, I mean, then
not the
it just
way to handle it.
our
Yeah.
egos started fighting because then immediately the response from that was, well, then you
Yeah.
need to grow one. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
so I don't have to. And so we just
But
would go back and forth with that. Yeah.
but that initial statement though, you went away, like, we had our little spat, our ego fight. It was just little Jimmy and little Jocelyn went at it for about 10
Yeah, they
minutes.
sure did.
And then about 3 days later, you come back and you're like, you really feel that way? I'm like, yeah. I said, I don't think you have a dick. I just think you don't want me to lead. And, and so you were like, And nobody's ever told me that. It's like kind of, it's one
Well,
of
I
those
mean,
moments.
it was more so like you kind of you gave me examples of where it's like you move to have control. And it's like put it into that space of like trigger of like stop swinging your dick around, but at the end of the day it's like I wasn't giving you space to lead because I needed to have energetic control for safety, and I didn't trust the masculine to do it. And that was like deeply something that had been built so ingrained, so subconsciously, unconsciously patternized and programmed that that's how I was moving without even 100% being able to see myself in it.
Yeah.
And so it's like I wanted something from you, and then it's like, well, if he would just do this and he would just lead and he would just be this person, well then of course I would feel safe to not have to take control, to not have to lead. And I would say that is a like one of the number one things I hear from women often is, if he would do this, if he would lead, if he would like be integrity with his word, if he would show up and do the thing, if he felt safe, then I wouldn't have to be XYZ. And although that is real, and you could have so much truth in that, you could give me 9 million examples of how that's true. You could give me all the ways that he's being this, that, or the other. And I say this all the time, there's still a reason you're a match for it. There's still a reason why you're experiencing it. It's still a reason why it's a part of your relationship, because
Hmm.
not every relationship is operating this way. And you have every ounce of leadership and power to see your side of the street, to alchemize your side of the street, to start showing up energetically different, to where things naturally will evolve in exactly the ways you want. But if you continue to need somebody else to be something before you are in alignment and you are alchemizing your own shadows and your own
Hmm.
wounds, you will continue to be a match for it, and you will continue to receive and see exactly what you're saying you don't want. And so, I always say like the ego doesn't disappear just because you become conscious. It just gets really, really good at moving more unconsciously. And it's like it navigates that, and it still keeps you in protection. It still keeps you from seeing the truth of yourself. Some of it's for protection of pain, of course, and some of it's because these little things that run in us, we don't necessarily want to own. And I see it so often being filtered through even a lot of the personal development, the spiritual development space, where it's like, oh, this is my human design, or oh, this is the way I just operate, oh, this is just how it is, oh, this is my one line or my three line or my projector or my generator, like all these things. And yes, there's lots of nuance of truth to all these things, but we can
Yes.
use our ego, will use and find anything to keep us from actually seeing the truth of the shadows that are
Yes.
running, that are keeping us dimming our light, that are keeping us playing small. We will find things and we will give all the evidence and justification as to why it's real. And you can find it. What you seek, you will find. What you try and go out and
Hmm.
put your intention to, you will attract the focus of, therefore the energy of. And I promise you, no matter what, whether it be in the personal development world, whether it be in your spiritual development, whether it be in your polarity, relationship dynamic growth, you can find anything to support your opinion, your truth, that will keep you and your ego and your shadows running rampant. And it will keep you continue to be disconnected from your true authentic self.
Hmm.
And it will keep you disconnected from the deep intimacy, the deep space that you truly want to feel in relationship. And we both did this. I mean, I did this for so long. Like, we wanted to have such a level of deep intimacy, and we were like, we're soulmates. We felt this truth, but we were wound mates for a majority of the beginning of through majority of our relationship up until the last few years, because we couldn't see truly the shadows that were running due to higher consciousness, due to like all the work we had done, and we were giving like these meanings to things, and we were creating identities around truths that were serving the ego,
Yeah.
that were serving the wound
And
essentially.
you see this all the time now, especially like with so much access to knowledge and information. And
Yeah.
all you need is like a definition or a term that refers to the person you're with. Like, oh, she's an avoidant. It just is what it is. And this, that, and the other. And I'm like, what about you? And they're like, what do you mean? She's an avoidant. And so every time I say something, she just runs away. I was like, what about you? And they don't even know. They don't even understand. Maybe you're an anxious. They're like, huh? I'm not. I don't feel anxious. Or I'm the reciprocal, or I'm creating an environment where this is normalized. And that's the real work, because just because I can label something something doesn't mean that something can't evolve. And that something can't, the dynamic can be better if I don't become better. And I regulate my nervous system and I look at my wounds and I handle this side of the street and I start to lead a different environment where that wound may not be prevalent anymore, because it doesn't need to come out and play the games. And it's a lot of, I think a lot of it goes to so much access to information, which I love. I think it's amazing that everybody has all this access to information. Now, what we do with the information is important. We can do it to elevate ourselves over the world, or we can do it to see ourselves with people in the world. And how
And
do we
see,
learn ourselves? Yeah.
yeah, and that's so powerful. And I will say on the other side of things, so I know you work with a lot of men,
Yes.
and that's what that perspective's coming from. And I'll give the other perspective, because I know a lot of ladies that are listening to us right now, right, listening to this right now, are saying, oh, I know I'm an anxious, I will own I'm an anxious, I will say that I know I'm an anxious. And so it's like there's also a space where it's like you can point outside of yourself and name something that somebody is. And then you can even have the awareness to own your side of the street of who you're being. Here's where this little trickiness comes in, where it's like, okay, I know I'm an anxious. So now I'm going to go seek the work to not be anxious. And that's the feel good work that I keep talking about. So it's
Yeah.
like I'm going to go do the work to not be an anxious, and so I'm going to go learn how to be more in my grounded self, how to hold better boundaries and standards, how to not feel like I need to have somebody to be okay, like all the things that you could list that that person would want to work on to be no longer a quote unquote anxious attached person.
Yes.
But it's all from the space of I'm going to become better, I'm going to be more empowered, right?
Yes.
But there's an actual space of looking at who am I being outside of anxious, outside of whatever, the shadows that are running, how am I being that's actually creating this person to be an avoidant?
Yes.
What are the things about myself that I have to look at that don't feel good, that would feel shameful, that would feel and trigger the deepest parts of my not good enoughness and me not being something? And looking at those are 10 times harder, and we avoid that like the plague. And
Yes.
it's like, even looking at those, somebody on here will be listening to this and be like, oh no, I look at those. And I will say that there's truth to the fact of whichever one you lean to also is a direct correlation to your wound. So what I mean by that is, for example, me and Jim, if I lean more towards I need to hold better standards, I need to stop abandoning myself, I need to own this, I need to do this, my wound is the person who is protected. The person who everything's outside of myself, the person who's the ninjas are out, the person who can't trust, the person who, everything quote unquote necessarily happens to. I'm not chosen, I'm not seen, I'm not understood. Like all these
Yeah.
core wounds we can talk about. Whereas yours are more I'm not good enough. I will never be enough. I need to keep climbing the mountain over and over and over again and never actually arrive anywhere. The lack mentality and mindset, right? So we have these wounds going. So Jim's natural response is to go, okay, I'm going to look at all the things in myself that aren't good enough. And I'm going to use that. And I'm going to say, okay, I need to, you know, look at all the ways, take all the ownership of where I'm not good enough, where I'm not good enough, where I'm not good enough. And that fuels the wound, essentially. So it's like, I'm going to go do the work that then actually fuels the deepest wound. Whereas myself, I'm over here like, I'm going to go do the work that actually makes me continue to avoid the fact that I'm not absolutely fucking amazing. Like it, and that's like ultimately
Yeah.
it's both, it's still doing the work that feeds the wound,
Yeah.
and avoiding and not seeing the work that is actually required to transcend and alchemize the wound. And
Yes.
and that's what we both do. And that's what we
That
see so many people doing.
that's the most important beat. Like God, like that was a beautiful picture you just painted because it's so real. Like we can do the work from the perspective we know we're doing the work from, and it's usually from the space of the wound or the shadow. But it's only, and if you like a not good enough person on my level is everything's around. I need to find all the ways I suck so I
Yep.
can make those things better. And then for you, it's like I need to find all the ways where I'm not giving myself enough credit and give myself more credit.
Yes.
And and then at the same time, neither one of us had done anything other than initialize the wound more. Because then we're just looking for more ways to suck. I am, and you're looking for more ways that I need to find more ways where I'm not giving myself the credit that I'm great at everything, which is crazy.
And that's the position that we wind up taking.
Yeah.
And it's the feel good work. Like
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I'm going to go seek out work that is going to, make me feel this way, when ultimately that's just initially still feeding the thing. It's not
Yeah.
looking at the dark side of the work. It's not
Mm.
actually doing the work that I'm being called to, that are running in the background unconsciously, where it's like, no. So, for example, we were working with a couple one time, and this is kind of a similar thing that was going on in their dynamics. And it was like his wound was the not good enough wound all the
Yes.
time. So in the relationship and in the growth, quote unquote, in the work, he was constantly taking responsibility for things. He was constantly saying, yes, I'm the fuck up, and yes, I do this, and yes, I'm horrible at this, and yes, I know that my upbringing and this was the problem, and I'm being this. And he would easily take the ownership of the relationship and what was going on as the fuck up, because ultimately that's the wound, is that
Yes.
he's not good enough. So he would continuously do the work to, or chase the work to say, well, of course I'm not good enough, so I know I'm the problem, so I'm going to do this work. Whereas on the other side it was like, well, I'm going to do the work where it's like I'm no longer available. I'm no longer, I'm going to hold different standards. I'm going to stop self-abandoning. I'm going to stand more in my confidence in my power, because the not good enough wound was constantly doing quote unquote fucked up things to
Yes.
be not good enough. And the other reciprocal of the wound was always receiving things as to why she couldn't trust somebody, why they weren't being enough, why they were doing things and being something that was not integral or was not ideal.
Mhm.
And therefore, they kept seeking the work that was fueling the wound.
And I
Where
think
it's like,
that's
go
important
ahead.
right there. Like that, the not good enough. You said feel good work, like not good enough wound. Like feel good work for not good enough people is pointing out all the shit they suck at. Like
Yeah.
it feels good for me. Like I used to say, like I love like conquering shit, like conquering bad shit about myself. And I would go to you like, what do I need to work on? What do you see? And you're like, what the fuck?
You constantly
Yeah,
needed to climb. You constantly
yeah.
needed to climb,
And
which just continued to fuel the wound.
yeah, consciously people don't understand that. Like not good enough people, they thrive understanding they suck, which is crazy. It sounds unconscious, but that's the way they move. And so when you're doing that work together, like you're doing all the positivity work and I'm doing all the negativity work, we're both doing the thing that lights us up. And it's the feel good work, even though it doesn't look good.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, on the reciprocal end, it's, I need to do the work because I keep getting treated this way. I keep getting taken advantage of. I keep getting cheated on. I keep, having people that don't value me. I keep
Hmm.
moving where people don't understand me and they, can't see me. And I keep moving to where I can't trust people. Well, ultimately, that's the wound, is not being able to trust, not being able to stay open, not being able to stay in light and dimming self and attracting like projects and fix-its and all these things where it's like, okay, yes, and so like I would seek the work to hold better standards, hold better boundaries, not self-abandon, like you know hold different spaces of myself where it's like I'm going to put you farther away from me because you're not safe, and I'm going to go find somebody who's safer. And in reality, I was not doing the work on myself, who was a control freak, who, was, yes, abandoning myself, but because it was like I didn't actually love myself. There was a space where I was giving so much grace, but I gave zero grace to myself, which
Hmm.
also is kind of the a little bit and still the feel good work, but also very necessary and needed. But it's like that's the work that I would chase instead of looking at the reciprocal side of things, and
Absolutely.
the not feel good work, which is ultimately what I wound up doing. And now, that's the piece that we have to really come into. It's like if you're chasing the work that just fuels the wound, then that's the feel good work.
Yeah.
And the pieces of you, like, for example, you going to do the work, or this other client I was talking about, who the guy who lives in the not good enough wound, you doing the work to actually be in your power, to actually stand grounded, to actually deeply love yourself, to actually move, like that is actually harder work for you. Whereas going and seeing and working on all the things that why you're not good enough was very easy work for you because
Hell yeah.
it fueled the wound.
Man, I was good at that. And I always had the hardest time. Was like, how do I stand grounded? How do I become more confident? How do I lead these scenarios better? Those things perplex me. But if you're
Yep.
like, hey, you're acting like an idiot and this, that, and the other, like, oh, yeah, I can do that work right now. Let's go. I'll go to war on that for 3 days and I'll be better. But I never was. And it was like the things that really challenged me to shift my perspective of self. That was the real work because it took into account that the thing that I was running from was a better version of me. I was holding on to the wounded version of me. And I
Yeah.
kept saying, I want to be the best version of myself, but I was always working to hold on to the not so pretty version of me.
Yeah, and we can get caught in the loop, and 9 times out of 10 you'll see couples that are a wound match to each other, so these things are playing out, and you can get into a loop, and it's like, "Oh, I'm going to marriage counseling," or, "Oh, I'm going to coaching," and it's like, it still is just like this rat race that you're on, and this hamster wheel you're on, because you're still chasing, like, oh, he's not good enough, and all the work is pointing to where he's not right, he's not good, he did XYZ, he's a fuck up, he's not integral, he's not showing up honest and authentic, he's not da, 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 da. I could go on and on and on. And then you have the reciprocal of the work where it's like, he's kind of telling her she's everything and not being honest about who she's being in his experience with her, or like not feeling safe to come and like say anything because she's always in control and she's always right and she's always going to
Hmm.
take the leadership of the room. And this could also be flip flop. So if you're hearing this, it's like
Yes.
this can also be, you know, genders reversed. And so it's like you go into the work and it's like the work is still fueling that space where it's like he's willing to take the ownership or she's willing to take the ownership, And then the other side is like, yeah, and I need to work on better self-love and holding better standards because you're a problem. And in reality, it's the both sides that are running unconsciously that are actually the wound match. And until you get to that work, you will continue to show up in coaching, podcasts, courses, all the things until you actually see what exactly is running in the shadows of the work that you are avoiding still. And your ego is still protecting. And your little ninjas are out here with their barriers and walls, still not wanting you to see. You will not actually change your external reality. You will not change your connection. You will not change the deep intimacy that you crave. You will not change the income in your business. You will not change these things. And you will continue to chase your tail in the work over and over and over again and asking yourself, what the hell? I'm so conscious. What the hell? I've done so much work. Why is my life not changing? Why can I see all these things? Why am I this? Why am I so powerful in the world? Why am I this? Yet my external reality is not changing. It's still showing the same shit over and over and over again. It's
Hmm.
because you've awakened and you've embodied certain levels of work that feel good. You've awakened and you understand consciously and you can see so many things outside of yourself, but you're still operating from conscious victimhood on some levels. And your ego is still at the forefront of the show, and the unconscious realms of being are creating 24/7. And so, if you don't
Absolutely.
have the external results that you desire, I can guarantee you, you have realms of shadows that are running that you can't see, and then dynamics that are being created in your business, in your relationships, in your parenting, in your health. All of those things are running. And until you actually do that work and actually see those things and actually shift and embody at that level, that is when you change your life. And there's so many people that will say, oh, I see this person outside of me, and oh, you could see, and like you want what they have. And you're like, yeah, but if they had to deal with what I have to deal with, then they wouldn't be able to have that. And you could come up with so many reasons as to what they're not experiencing that you are, as to why you don't have the thing yet. But I can
Hmm.
guarantee you, 99% of the time, if you actually look, the reason they don't have the thing that you're saying is the barrier to you not being able to have it is because they're not a match for it. Unconsciously and in the shadows, they are not a match for it. That's why they don't have it. And if you're a victim to your circumstance, no matter what it may be, if you're a victim to it without seeing how you're a match for it, you will continue to spiral. You will continue to run the rat race. You will continue to look outside of yourself and have every reason why someone else has something that you don't have. It's going into and really seeing that you are a match for every reality that you have. And your external reality is simply a reflection of your internal state of being on an unconscious and subconscious level. And when you
Hmm.
can truly see it, and you work with a coach that can truly see it and can help you to move past this and embodiment from power, not shame, then you actually get to transcend it and you get to change your life. You get to shift your identity. You get to
Yeah.
transcend and alchemize the wounds that are creating the reality that you're currently
And I
living
think
in.
it's important, to mention here. Obviously, this is what we do in the world. And if you're out there and you're wanting to get into this level of self understanding, it's finding a mentor in your world that's unwilling to tell you you're right all the time.
Yep.
That's willing to challenge you and
Yep.
challenge your own awareness of self and hold you to the mirror of you instead of the mirror of the world. The world is the world. It is what it is. Your world is just reflecting you. And you need somebody in your life that's not going to yes, ma'am, you and yes, sir, you. It's going to be the ones like, oh, really? Tell me more about that. I
Well,
want to hear more.
that's the feel
Yeah,
good work that
feel good work.
and most of the time we will unconsciously so we will only hire, we will only seek, we will only try and find the person that's going to give us that level of work, the
Yeah.
feel good work. And the moment that somebody doesn't, that's triggering, that calls for truth, that gets you to see behind the things, that's what people run from. And ultimately, when you hire, when you seek out, you're doing it from the lens and you're attracting the space to feel better. And And in that, you're missing the mark, and you'll keep investing thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars trying to find the thing.
Yeah.
And I know it because I've been it. And we have so much more to I have so much more to say on this. We're going to do a second episode on this,
Yes.
but we're going to dive into on the next episode. We're going to dive into how this is actually playing out with AI as well,
Ooh.
because
Yes.
AI has become such a prominent um leader, guider, go-tour, whatever you want to call it in our world. And it's only going to continue and continue to be more integrated into our very identity and who we're being. But there's
Absolutely.
something that you are using AI for, and the way that you're using that is also contributing to this whole conscious ego epidemic. And we're going to dive into that on the next episode. But for this one, thank you so much for being here. Check out the link for any upcoming spaces to follow us on the socials, and we will see you on the next one.
Bye, guys.